everybody, welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. My name is Joe.
So I have Joe here with me tonight, and I'm glad because he hasn't been feeling well.
Yeah, I have like sinus and all the stuff like that. It sucks, but some of the other symptoms I've experienced the last couple of weeks have been nausea and like double vision. So if I don't have that, it's just a head cold. I'll take that any day. But thanks for having me with you.
Well, the thing about Joe is that if he's not on the channel, something's wrong. It's never a situation of, oh, I don't feel like doing it tonight or maybe next week. So we really appreciate your prayers, you guys. So tonight, Joe and I were going to talk about, well, actually something related to the community post that I posted several days ago. Some of you may have seen it. I was thinking about my house, which I think sold, is for sale, whatever it is, the house that I lived in New Hampshire that I didn't want to sell. I loved my house. It was so painful to sell that house. And I was talking about it with my son the other day, and I was mentioning to him that the people that bought the house before us, actually, let me just say, when I was living in that house, really weird supernatural things happened. I don't think there was something in that house. I know it. I saw it. My kids saw it. And the people that had lived in the house before us only lived there for 6 months. And I thought that was so odd. So I was wondering, and I'm contemplating and speaking to my son. I was like, do you think I should contact these people and see if they had any weird experiences? And so I asked you guys what you thought. Well, I brought it up to Joe, and he said something that it just hit me. He's right, or he's probably right. He was like, you know what? It's not, because I thought it was weird. Because I said to Joe, I would not buy a house with like Joe if I wasn't completely committed to him. And to go from that to divorce in 6 months just seemed weird. But Joe's like, you know what, Sharon, how many times do people have a baby, get a puppy, buy a new house, go on vacation, trying to save a marriage? They probably had already had trouble in their marriage, and this was kind of like, this was us, we're going to save the marriage this way. So that made sense. So I feel less inclined to contact them now, because as soon as you said that, Joe, it was one of those things where, oh yeah.
I was trying to keep it like, I don't want to overreach. I know that you're very upset about selling the house too. So by maybe saying to yourself unconsciously, well, it was haunted anyways, it would have hurt less. But
that is what I was doing.
What I believe, though, is that the hauntings and the experiences that you encountered were a direct result of that cascading effect your ex-narcissist brought upon your family.
Yeah, I agree too. You know, Joe and we're very open with each other and with you guys about I don't want to tell you I believe we're in spiritual warfare. I know it. It's so real to us. It's as real as me sitting here with you right now, Joe.
Yeah, and we don't talk about it often. Sharon and I do. We do talk about it personally often. The spiritual component of it, because it's very real for us. It's like we don't believe, we know.
Yeah.
But it's like, when's the last time we talked about it with other people? Sharon and I's background is so different. Like, we're different people, yet our personalities really complement each other. But like for Sharon, she didn't really start getting introduced to the spiritual component of life, and then the evil that she encountered until she was with her ex and she was married. Me, on the other hand, it started when I was a little kid. You know.
Yeah, that's true, Joe. Like, I didn't grow up with religion. My parents, you know, my father had an issue with religion, and so my mother wasn't religious either. So I didn't have religion growing up. I didn't go to church. It wasn't part of my life at all. It wasn't until literally I always believed in God, strangely. I don't know why, but I always did. But God to me was Santa Claus. You know, he's somebody that I would call to or ask to give me things. I never once thought I am actually supposed to do things for God. But I was woken up, I know the exact date, April 21st, 2016, God came and got me. He got me. And once he got me, spiritual warfare erupted around me, and so many things happened. And that's why, and we can get into it as the video progresses, that's why Joe has had a similar experience, but he had spiritual warfare from a child. We've seen this. We know it. It's real.
Yeah, and I think the toughest part for me right now is overcoming the codependency and the abuse. Is like when there are demons or evil that's attached to you since you were in the womb of your mother. You know, and it has been following me the whole time.
Actually, you know what, Joe, talk a little bit about that, because I just said that I didn't experience that. I didn't experience any spiritual warfare until I was an adult, and it was like less than 10 years ago. you were telling me that this is something that's always been a part of your life.
It has, unfortunately. I think it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. But I remember when I was like 3 or 4 years old, I had this faith in God, like in Jesus. I don't know why.
That's strange, like, because me too.
Very, very young, like that. I knew that I didn't really like this place, and I said, I want to go. I want to go home. I want to take me back home. It's like I remembered where I came from. But my mother, who's a narcissist and an alcoholic, her mother was. My mother had her own childhood abuse growing up, and as I was growing up, that's trickled down into me. And there were many times where, she was an awesome mom. I don't want to sound like contradictory. I mean, I've learned so much about surviving and using my brains, and like she taught me everything that she could possibly. But unfortunately, part of her was the abuse part. But there were many times like her face would change, and it would be scary. Or she would come out of her bedroom after she had passed out, drinking and doing pills, and she'd come out, and there would just be this dark, dark force driving behind her, and she'd be yelling and screaming. So, yeah, I was introduced at a very young age, and I believe, like, somehow when I became older, it manifested maybe a different evil, a different demon, but manifested through my ex. And that's why I wonder sometimes, like, Sharon and I were talking about, do we attract these things? And, I think Dr. William Hare.
Robert Hare.
Robert Hare, yeah, he did a psychopathy checklist in a DSM-5, and he calls like these kind of narcissists, the ones we dealt with, intraspecies predators. Like you would ask a question, we could go over this a little bit more. Like, do you think narcissists like throwing that out in the ocean and you get what you can get sometimes? But I also believe that they study and they hunt and they watch and they learn, that there's something about not every empath, but empaths like myself and you and the listeners. It's just maybe a low self-esteem, maybe not very heavy boundaries, maybe the light inside us that they just are attracted to. So I always thought that the same demon that was after me when I was a kid, like, has followed me in my family, my sons,
See, I don't know if I can see that being true. I don't know. Like, because I feel like a lot of times a narcissist does kind of cast out a net, and it's who they catch. Because like you mentioned to Joe, and I've said this on the channel like a million times, my ex would give me lengthy silent treatments, like 7 months of silent treatment one time. He gave my kids 2 years. But I'm just going to forget the kids just for now, because for what I'm going to say. Somebody gives you a silent treatment for 7 months, 7 days, 7 hours, whatever it is. Not everybody's going to put up with that. Who would put up with it? Like, when I think about myself, now granted, it was a little bit different because I was married, and I'm married, I'm figuring I wasn't working, I was a stay-at-home mom, like, how am I going to live? What am I going to do? It's not as easy as if I was just dating him and I didn't have any kids. But when I was dating him, he gave me silent treatments. So I think to myself, what was wrong with me? Because I wouldn't put up with that for 1 second. Even now, like, Joe is so super, like, I don't say paranoid, but you're really, really cautious about not ignoring me.
Yeah, I try to be mindful. Like, we showed each other our vulnerabilities, and we love each other and respect each other enough to try to be mindful of each other and practice the empathy that we do possess, and protect each other and build each other up.
That is true. Like, I'm not trying to get too much into our relationship right now, but one of the things that I appreciate after being with a narcissist is that Joe and I actually try to better each other. I remember we did a few weeks ago our little love languages. We're actually aware of that and try to show that. Like, Joe doesn't like to be touched when he's upset. And, oh God, Joe, it was like a week or two ago you were upset. I wanted to reach out to touch you so bad, but I was like, all right, no. But it's good, when you're like that.
Yeah, so, not to go too far off, whether they catch the net or they throw a net and get what they can, or they really like hone in on certain kinds of individuals, for whatever reason, I believe that, like, it's just, I attracted evil. It used to scare me sometimes. I remember when I was reading about narcissism, and I know, like, I'm multi-level effed up sometimes, like depression and this. I was like, holy crap, man, how about if I'm the narcissist? and I really tried to look at it.
I think a lot of people think that. I never thought that, but I think a lot of people
I was
think that.
scared, man.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy crap. And then I started thinking about like my relationship with my two boys and being a single dad. Not that being a single dad means anything, but like I made a conscious effort to really love my sons when her mother was out of their lives and really try to comfort them. It was a big deal for me. I used to tell them all the time, they're teenagers. I was like, guys, if I start acting like an asshole, like let me know because I don't want to be that way to you. I love you both and I don't want this to trickle into our relationship.
Well, I think it's kind of what I was just saying a minute ago. Like you're conscious about not giving me a silent treatment. You're conscious about being loving and kind to your sons. And right there, like that's not something a narcissist would do. You're aware of yourself.
Explain to us, remind us, revisit. No, I don't believe on like shutting the door all the way. I always like to keep it open because if we revisit it, it might help somebody else out. But like, what are some of the things that happened to you? Like, I'll talk about some of the things that happened to me when you were with your ex and when you started to experience these things.
So for me, like I said, I didn't grow up with religion. I didn't go to church. I believed in God, but I think just to go back for 1 second, when I say I think they must throw out a net, I think that for whatever reason, see, for me, you guys, what I really wanted to have a family. That I wanted a family so badly. I couldn't wait to have babies. That was so important to me. So I think with my ex, I put up with more things because I was like, all right, I have my kids, or I want to have my kids. And I think that kind of just happened. But then as time went on, and I had my family, I had what I wanted. But my ex he was such a problem all the time. But I was confused. It wasn't until that day, I was listening to the radio in my bathroom on April 21st, 2016. God came, actually he came in a week earlier than that, but the radio thing was really something that hit me. I stopped being codependent immediately. I was telling Joe, like I literally stopped doing anything from ex
You
at
didn't
that
know
point.
nothing about like codependency
No.
to a point. It's just, yeah, it was actually my spiritual experience was more on like a educational variety, like over like the time. Yours was actually like not many people have that kind of experience.
God came into my life in a very obvious way. And remember, like I wasn't like I was praying and going to church. It just happened one day and it shocked me.
So what happened? What happened? I forget. Tell me the story.
Which was the bathroom of the week before.
The bathroom one when you listened to the radio.
Yeah, so I was listening to the radio, and this is like gonna sound weird, right? The announcer said that the artist Prince had died. As soon as he said that, it was like a flip of a switch. All of a sudden, actually, let me just go. I'm sorry, I know I'm saying this, but the week before is important. My ex had been laid off, and he had like 6 months severance pay. We were coming up to that 6 month mark, and I was freaking out. He wasn't getting a job. He didn't get called back for any interviews. I'm in my basement cleaning because I wanted to like try to distract myself. All of a sudden, now this wasn't audible, but I could hear him. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just that it was said in my head, "Be still and know that I am God." It struck me so hard. And what? Now I see that quote around, right? I mean, you just go to Hobby Lobby, you see it everywhere. We haven't, Joe and I have
And
signs.
you never read that quote like consciously before. You never read the Bible.
I never remember hearing it. I didn't own a Bible. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't know the Bible. So I know like some of you might be thinking, oh, I hear that all the time. Yes, now I do, but I didn't. I was so stunned. I went upstairs. I was looking for my ex to tell him this. And he stopped me and he said, oh my God, I just got a job. So right as soon as like I had heard in my voice, like I said, not audible, I wasn't hallucinating, "Be still and know that I am God," at that moment, and I knew then that God was speaking to me. Right then I knew it. Then nothing happened, and a week later, it was April 21st, and that is when all of a sudden the radio announcer mentioned that Prince had passed away, and something flipped like in me right then. I could feel it.
Why? Why would that flip? Like because of Prince? Like,
well, the reason for that, I was in a serious relationship earlier, like in my late teens, early 20s, and the person who I was in the relationship with really liked Prince. So as soon as he said that thing about Prince, now this is a weird thing, you guys. It was a serious relationship. I was with him for a couple of years. I never thought of him ever, like ever. And it's so strange to me now, because not that I think about people all the time, but you would think at some point it would go through your mind. I never thought about this person. When he said that, the radio announcer, I was back. I was back what, I didn't think I was with him, but he was on my mind every single day. And this started April 21st, you guys.
And you had kids and stuff and still married to your ex.
Yes, yes. And this was the weirdest thing, you guys. From April 21st until August 18th. August 18th was our anniversary. Until those 2 dates, he was on my mind nonstop. And I knew it. I knew. Like, for some reason, I knew I was going to have to go through August with this. There was one point, and this is the strangest thing. I think probably the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. I was in my kitchen. Right? I can like picture myself there. And all of a sudden, I wanted to go home. Like, I had 2 kids running around me. I was living in New Hampshire. I used to live in California with this person. I wanted to go home. Like, I felt almost like, what happened? Like,
How do I get here?
yes,
Who are these people around me?
yes. It was, you guys, I literally can remember being like, all right, I have money available on my credit card. I could buy a plane ticket. Like, I'm thinking this. I know that sounds crazy. I knew I couldn't. I wouldn't have done
There's a
it.
part of you that knew, and then there's a part of you that didn't know.
Yeah.
Tell me now. Let's jump a little bit forward. Why? Why did that happen?
I believe that happened because when our relationship ended, I blamed him 100%. If you had said something to me on like April 20th, 2016, I would have told you, oh yeah, so-and-so is a jerk. It was his fault. I believe, this is what I think happened. God came into my life to work with me. Like, I don't know why I was chosen. I feel blessed to have had this happen to me, but I went through hell to get to where I am now. I think he couldn't use me unless I learned the truth about that relationship. When I learned, you know what? Because at the end, August 18th, I knew it was not that it was his fault, partly his fault. It was my fault. Like, something I did in their relationship ended the relationship.
So when that came to be, like, were you okay with it? Did you find peace after that? Like, holy crap, it was at fault.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I at that day, August 18th, I prayed. I would pray. Like, I realized, and I asked God for forgiveness. And I never contacted this person. I did think about it a few times. I never did. I have no desire to do it now. But during this whole thing, I almost, there were many times I was like, all right, if I'm still feeling this way, next week I'll call him. If I'm still doing, because I could probably find it pretty easily. I don't know where he lives. I know nothing. So I'm happy I didn't contact him. But I did get to the point where I prayed for him. And I genuinely, truly hope he's happy today. I hope he is well. I think if I had not done that, I wouldn't be where I am now. I'd probably still with my ex.
No, I think it was a vital component for your own recovery and taking a look at your side of things,
God grabbed me and pushed me into the storm.
So when that happened, you listened to the radio. At the same time, you told me, like, unconsciously, you didn't even know, but you broke the chains of codependency and you stopped, like, unconsciously giving your ex at the time who you're married to the narcissistic supply. So when that happened, talk to me, because we were talking about, like, some of the experiences, the spiritual things. What started happening?
So, you're right. That exact day, it was like a door slammed. It was over. And then things started happening. Now, on one hand, I started feeling promptings by God. Like, I started going to church after that because I felt like I was supposed to. But at the time, I knew I had heard from God when he said, be still and know that I am God. But I wasn't aware that I was experiencing this spiritual, relationship with God. I actually was very upset about dealing with this other guy for 4 months because it was torture. I was obsessed with thinking about this relationship. My ex has always been a problem. My kids weren't a problem, but they were around. I'm trying to raise my kids. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm trying to live my life, take care of my animals. And I'm bombarded with these disturbing realities in my mind. So after I put that to rest, it's I moved on to the next step and I started going to church. I started making friends. All these things happened to me, but my ex, as God came to rescue me, my ex started going downhill. It was incredible how fast he went downhill. And this is why, if you are in an entanglement with a narcissist and you stop giving them narcissistic supply, I'm telling you, you have more power than you think.
You do, but you have to pay attention and really watch too, and really start making plans in the back of your mind of what you want to do as far as an exit strategy.
I think that's crucial. I started having extraterrestrial things happen in my home. Just weird, I don't know, extraterrestrial, I don't mean outer space, I meant religious things, spirits, demons. They were in my house all of a sudden. They were in my ex. Over the next few years, So this happened in 2016 until I left in 2019. Was it 2019, 2020? Is that horrible? I can't remember. It was 2020, right?
2020.
So I was with him for several years after that, during this. So I saw all of this. My kids saw it, you guys. My kids witnessed this stuff. The walls in my house started crying. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it did. If I could find pictures on my phone, I'll put them, I'll put them on the community page. I do have them so I can show you. The walls of my house started crying. Water started coming all over the place. I saw this black figure. It wasn't an African American man or anything. It was a black figure in my garage. I saw this. All the time stuff was happening. My son had the scariest problem. He was in, we called it the schoolroom / office. It was a bonus room. He was watching TV at my ex's desk, and there was a pencil cup. And it was like a plastic pencil cup, right? It's not some lead cup. And he noticed it at the edge of the desk, so he pushed it back. And then he's like, I was still watching TV, so all of a sudden it was back there, and I was confused. Like, how did this happen? He's like, then I tried to push it back. He said something was pushing him the other way, like pushing on that pencil cup. He couldn't move it. And you know my son, I mean, does he seem like somebody that would make this up?
No. He's a straight shooter, that kid. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was happening with that. Then the time that he went to church, like it started like backing up when you went to church with him the one time. This could have been before, but you started to, your eyes were open to like what was really going on.
My eyes started opening gradually. Things were happening in my life, and I didn't know what was happening. I had no idea. It's really in retrospect, I can go back and piece these things together. But essentially, I had such a spiritual awakening that I don't think it happened. I know it did.
Really, when their face changes and their voice is somebody else's, and you can call it psychology, whatever the hell you want, but when you experience that, you've been with somebody for 20, 30 years, and that happens, like, this isn't him.
You know what I was thinking too? I was just thinking this, Joe and I have mentioned that we're very open talking to each other like this. Our kids are as well. Like, I was driving around with your son the other day, and we were talking about these things. It's real. He knows it's real. Our family, the kids and Joe and I, this is something that we talk about very openly. This happens to us, and it's horrible. But in the same way, it gives you a new perspective on life.
Good. Like my son told me a couple of days ago. He said, "Dad, I had to sleep at the light I did last night." And I said, "What happened?" And he told me he had a nightmare where there was something was pressing on his back, like pressing him into the bed, like his face where he couldn't breathe. And I know what's been happening to me my whole life, and I also know this thing was my kids. I also believe in the power of prayer and God. But it's still concerning, like, what the hell's going on. But yeah, we're open like that. So if there's ever any issue, it's never, they're going to think I'm lying or they're going to think I'm nuts. We don't encourage we encourage creative thinking. Don't get me wrong. Our daughter's a writer. We're not talking about like encouraging an imagination. Like, we encourage you to be open and honest. And because of that, like, we're all kind of have an idea of what's out there and we're on the same page.
And the thing is too, like, and I love this because really we'll talk about anything that we want to, but the kids, yeah, they're open to it. But when your son said that the other day, it reminded me, as soon as you said it, because there's something with his son that hopefully it's nothing, but we're kind of, I don't know, we have our feelers out. One day I was in our bedroom. We have 4 kids together. We had a picture of each child in our room. His picture just fell on the floor one time. I was in the room. I wasn't near the picture. I mean, I guess I kind of was. I was in the room, but I wasn't like touching the dresser it was on. It just fell and broke. And when you told me what he had said to you the other day about pushing on you, do you remember that happened to you? You used to call me and tell me there was something in that room.
Yeah, at night after I kicked the ex out of the house, I had the boys. And I could hear in my head, like, I call God Dad. Like, he wouldn't let them kill me, but he'll let them mess with me. For whatever reason it was. I have no idea. But, my son's on a good path right now, and we pray for him. We read the Bible. It's just, this thing has been following me around ever since I've been born.
Does it scare you? Because I'm not afraid of it, oddly. Hearing this, you think, oh my gosh, you must be terrified. I never was.
I've always been concerned because I knew it was happening for a reason, like it was a blessing and a curse at the same time. Sometimes I would be a little afraid, but I call on Jesus and say, hey, like, I need you right now. I'm scared. And he'd always come for me. The only times I was really scared was when my ex lived at the house and her face would change and her voice would change. And it was so, like, I drank like the last cup of coffee, and like you would think that I stole every penny from her purse and did all. It was like that kind of vile like hatred.
When
I've
you
never
say
experienced
that, like I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not afraid of spiritual things like the walls crying and things, but I was afraid of my ex. That's true. When you're
Yeah.
saying you're afraid, I get that.
Well, I'm telling you, see, now here's the crazy part. Like my ex, and she's told me ever since she's been a little child, and she went over her own abuse and stuff like that, was being chased around by a demon. I believed her. It wasn't. I just knew. Her grandmother used to read her the Bible and this and that, but yeah, there was times at nighttime when she'd have night terrors, and her arms, like she'd be on her back, and her arms would go all the way up to the ceiling. That happened several times. I've watched it too. It wasn't until afterwards I was just like, holy shit, Joe, like what the F?
That's good that you're saying that because that's something that happened to me too. Like later, I'm piecing all these
Hindsight,
things.
like, and you look
Yes.
like, what the, like when you
Yeah.
said you went to church with you one time and was very sick and needed to go, and
Oh, you guys, it was horrible. I go to church. So I started going to church with the kids, right? This was after I had the whole spiritual awakening, but I didn't really know that was happening. But I felt, and one of the things I did that really helped me, when I felt a prompting, I did it. Like I never, like when I started feeling I should go to church, I started going. It wasn't like, I went. So
you started listening to your gut instincts finally.
yes, exactly. So I hated going just the kids and I. I wanted to go as a family. That's what I wanted. Because everyone else was there as a family, and it was just kind of my dream. I was like, I want us all to go, right? So I talked well, actually, no, he didn't go with me. We went to this thing called, talked him into going to
Some
this
pancake thing.
pizza with the pastor. And so I remember, because I was like, see, it's not really church. We're just going to meet the pastor. But it was inside the church. So he reluctantly went. We go there. There were a bunch of families there. We were there. And as soon as we walked into the church, my ex started acting weird. He just was not himself. He was like shaking a little bit. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I can be here. I don't feel good. And I was so pissed off at him because I was like, come on, Nick, you can't sit here and eat a piece of pizza, right? Like he didn't seem like so sick that he couldn't do it. It almost seemed like he was being dramatic. So we're sitting there. He's sitting there and he starts shaking. Right, his knees are going up and up and up, and he's like bumping into me. I was so angry and embarrassed. I'm like, "What are you doing?" At one point, he got up and left. He just left. He said nothing to anybody. Then he's texting me from the car. I'm sorry. I was so sick. I can't be there. I just something's wrong. I can't be in that room. And at the time, I was like, are you serious? I was angry because my ex didn't do a lot of things for me. And I'm like, I asked him to do this one thing, not even be at a service, just eat pizza with the pastor and some people. He can't do it. And maybe you guys will think I was rude for saying that, but that is how I felt. Later, when I'm thinking about it, because I've seen my ex, like Joe kind of mentioned earlier, I've seen him change. I've heard him speak in a different voice. There's been true evil attached to him. I think there's a demon. I don't know if it's in him, on him, if he's all demon. I don't know. But there's something evil connected to him. And I think being in that church was just, it wasn't sitting well with whatever was in him.
And for Sharon, it's pretty much like this divorce is getting through, and she's cutting all strings from him. Like her part of the spiritual battle seems to be over in a way, yet there's a reason why Sharon and I met, because my spiritual battle is still going on, and it scares me. Like if demons are attached to narcissism, it scares me. Like why is this one attached to me? Like I must be a bad person. Sometimes I think that, or it's scary, it's disheartening, and it really, really plays with you, because after this divorce was over, I thought, thank you, God, like I'm finally, and then things started happening again, and I get it, like I know I'm the problem, like the narcissist was only part of the problem, but it's very exhausting.
It's different. Yeah, it's different for Joe. Like the two of us, we're in different places. I'm not afraid of evil. I mean, I don't want to be around it, but I'm not afraid. It doesn't freak me out. I think my kids are safe. I think I'm safe. I feel that way. But for Joe, like I'm past it. For Joe, he's right. It's very much still a part of him. I've seen it, yeah.
You know, it's not anything make believe. But at the same time, there's certain things that I need to do to go through it, you know, and when it's time, if it is time that it subsides, it will. It's definitely not the way it was when I was captured by that demon. You know what I mean?
It's definitely better, but it reminds me a lot of times, like with that ex-boyfriend of mine, I had to go through
There's
these
some
4
unresolved.
months.
There might
Yeah.
be some unresolved issues
Yeah.
that I got to look at, and I can get all that. It was just we are so different, Sharon and I, from our experiences and stuff. That the cool part about the channel is that we touched all genders, all different. Like she had a spiritual awakening, like boom, right then and there. Like I wish I could have something like that. It might have been more of the educational variety experience and over a matter of time. But I did become awakened. I definitely, like, my eyes have opened. I do know peace. It's just I have to work. I got to work towards that a lot harder than other people.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. I feel though with you, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, because it just, and I think part of that is because what I went through myself, it was so bad, you guys. Now, granted, I know today it could be like, oh, 4 months, it was horrible. It was torturous. It was so bad.
And that was just 4 months of that. Then
Yeah,
you
that
were still with the
exactly.
damn narcissist
Yes.
and all that stuff on top of it.
Because all the other stuff happened too, like all these like weird things with my ex, hauntings with my ex. But you know what the thing is? Today, I'm not, it doesn't frighten me. And I think it's because and I say this to Joe all the time, you've already won. Like you already won. I have a very firm grasp on God. I know he's with me, so it doesn't freak me out. But when you're going through it, when things are happening and you don't have that firm belief, or you think, I hope it's going to be okay, that's when it can be really terrifying.
It can be, but I remember a couple of years ago, I'd have panic attacks, 3 times a week?
God, you had him a lot.
Like I had, what was it? An ulcer, abdominal ulcer that felt like my stomach was on fire. I couldn't breathe in the middle of the night.
He would have panic attacks so bad that he literally couldn't speak. So, like, could not
I would
speak.
call up you.
Yeah.
I would call up Sharon, and I tell her if I don't ever talk, that means I'm trying to prevent a panic attack or whatever. And she would just start talking to me, and I catch my breath back and stuff like that. It was bad.
It's definitely better. It definitely is better. But I think now it's not just you. You're worried about your sons as well.
Yeah, and that's like, there's a divine purpose for all this, though, and you're right. In the end, guys, the battle's already won. Is, there's a reason for it, and I just need to keep moving forward, working, doing my part, and it'll all work out.
Oh, I believe that too. And the thing about Joe, I tell him this all the time. Like sometimes he'll tell me that, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening? I think that Joe is so much stronger than he thinks he is, because I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you. Well, I'm not afraid, and I'm not, but that comes natural to me. I'm not afraid. Joe is afraid, and he still does it. You still do what you have to do, and that's a huge difference.
It's a blessing, and I'm glad that we're together going through this and sharing with other people. But you guys, before I forget, thank you for the prayers that you've given me. And with that, we say have a happy Monday, Sharon.
Yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this, because Joe and I were talking a little while ago, and he's like, we should just do this for a video, just kind of chat back and forth. So let us know if you like this little setup, and we'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you believe that there's a spiritual aspect to this? Do you think that God is behind, not God that is behind all this, but do you think that God is the only one that can save you? So thank you guys for listening. I will see you guys on Wednesday, and I hope you all have a great week. Bye. God bless.
God bless you guys.